Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Roerig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. I am your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today is
Will Roerig.
So today we are going to be talking about our two main catalog shows that we've been talking about forever on this podcast, pretty much. We're going to be talking about What If, the season 1 finale, and we're going to be talking about What We Do in the Shadows, season 3, episode 6. In addition to that, we got some news stories to go over, a few things that we're talking about individually that we've played or watched, and then a few dates coming up of shows, movies, games coming out. So hopefully this will be a quicker episode than last week's, which ended up running quite long.
But it should be breezier.
Let's kick things off with On Beat. On Beat is our news segment. Let's get started with Venom, Let There Be Carnage, the theatrical debut. It did exceedingly well at the box office, 90.1 million over the weekend. That is the biggest pandemic opening yet. So that beats Black Widow, which was the previous number one, which was 80.3 million. Of course, that also beats Shang-Chi, Fast 9, all of those. So this is now the best movie opening since March 2020.
People love symbiotes. What can you say?
I plan on watching the movie. I haven't watched the first movie though. So I was looking up where to watch the first movie before I could do that. And yeah, it isn't really available on anything to just watch. Like you have to rent it or buy it.
Good job, Sony.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. You have a new movie out and the original movie isn't available anywhere. And they succeed despite that.
Yeah, they succeed despite that. And it's because the cast, Tom Hardy's a big draw.
Woody
and
Harrelson.
Also, it's the characters. It's Venom and Carnage, two of the most popular of all-time Spider-Man villains. Venom was so popular, Marvel pimped out Venom like crazy back in the 90s to the point where he even got his own series.
Well, his inclusion in Spider-Man 3, the Sam Raimi version, was basically against Raimi's will.
Yeah,
he didn't want Venom in it, and they basically forced him to put him in it.
Yeah, they forced him into it because Sony wanted Venom in the movie because they know that character's a draw. Hard to blame them.
I also think they did a better job promoting this movie than the last one.
Yeah, I think they did too.
They really played into the humor.
Yeah,
all the trailers and the commercials were mostly humor. It was almost all humor, and then there's a serious threat too. Whereas the last trailers were serious threat, maybe a little bit of humor, but serious threat,
Yeah, and
it's
I feel
complete opposite here.
I feel like something like this works best when it's jokey and it leans into the humor and it knows it's a goofy movie about fucking alien symbiotes. It doesn't try to take itself way too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. It looks decent. I know critics have been trashing it, but that means little to nothing to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I plan on watching it. Like I said, I'm going to watch the first one first, which
this is my junk food. Yeah.
I have to rent it, so it's going to be $4 on YouTube or something, or to rent it. And then I'll go out and watch it. But I want to go to a movie soon, so that's probably going to be the next movie I go to. Nice. It's also worth noting here, though, that, as I said, 90.1 million, making it the biggest post-pandemic opening yet. But also, it's significantly more than the opening for the first movie, which only did 80.2.
Yes.
So this did an additional, 10 million.
It's the Carnage effect. People love Carnage.
Or just the fact
it's the Woody Harrelson
it has
effect.
A real villain.
Yeah.
The first movie didn't seem to have a real villain draw,
Well, who's Venom's rogues gallery? I don't even know. Carnage. There's a bunch of other symbiotes too. But...
Yeah. Spider-Man is Venom's rogue.
Yeah, Spider-Man is one of Venom's rogues. Yeah, I don't know. There's really like nobody on the Venom level of Carnage, to be honest.
Yeah. There's some ones recently in the comic books. There was like a symbiote apparently that they introduced as like basically the origin of all of the symbiotes. It's like really powerful character or something. That like I could imagine them going to something like that to do like a real grand epic kind of thing.
Yeah.
Depending on if Sony has the rights to that character, because I don't even know if that character was from the Venom comics or from other Marvel comics. I don't know. It's all weird with that stuff. But yeah, so that's Venom. One last piece of news coming out of all of this, you know, the box office thing is that Shang-Chi is past 200 million domestic now as well this weekend. So Marvel doing pretty decent during the pandemic period.
Marvel's eaten. You think they'll make a Venom 3?
I think that's likely.
Yeah.
Probably I'll have Spider-Man in it or something.
Yeah, probably.
House of the Dragon had a new trailer. This is the Game of Thrones spin-off series.
Wasn't too much. I got to see Matt Smith in full costume.
He looks good. He looks the part.
Yeah, he looks the part. Everybody looked the part. I don't know, like, the characters are anything. Like, I have to read House of the Dragon. I haven't.
I think this is all unique, pretty much. It's based loosely off of the that Fire and Blood book, I think, which is the Targaryen. It's like a Targaryen history book. It's not even like a. It's not like
it's not like a traditional narrative. Yeah, it's written like it's a history book.
And I think there's supposed to be some aspects to that, but in general, this is pretty much a unique spin-off or something. Like it's its own thing. They were going to do one, I think, called Fire and Blood that ended up being canceled.
Yeah, they were working on it. But trailer looked good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm rooting for it.
It's weird to root for Game of Thrones right now, you know?
It is. Everybody's so negative. Like, I get like the last seasons of like the main show weren't great, but it's like, it's such rich material that it's not like everything they make, it's going to be horrible from here on out. Like, that's silly. You got 5 good seasons out of Game of Thrones. Yeah,
and the showrunners of Game of Thrones have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, and the showrunning, yeah, exactly. It's new showrunners completely. So it's, you know, it's going to be somebody else's take on the material. I choose to be optimistic rather than pessimistic. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm looking forward to it. It. Like I said, it does feel a little bit weird to look forward to it just after everything that went on with Game of Thrones in its final season. The only thing that's kind of like a lingering annoyance about this series existing is just that there are so many other like good fantasy books that I'd love to see adapted, you know?
Right.
But, you know...
like everything... It's
companies aren't going to take a risk on something that's not an established franchise, you know?
Right.
It's not like if this didn't exist,
Warner
like HBO would be adapting the King Killer Chronicles or something.
Right, yeah. Warner Brothers wants to fully capitalize on, you know, the success and the name brand of Game of Thrones, and I can't really blame them for that.
Yeah. It looked decent. It's just a teaser. It didn't, you know, really show too much. Just, you know, Matt Smith gave some speech about
it wasn't
they were in power, and then it showed like little bits of footage here and there.
Yeah, it wasn't much of it. It was just a tease. We're going to get the show next year.
Our next news story, Squid Game, looks like it's on track to be Netflix's most watched show ever. Ted Sarandos, who's the head of content at Netflix and the co-CEO of the company, made some comment about how they've never seen anything like this before on their service. And I know like some people were like, really? Like not even like Tiger King? It's like, well, I imagine Tiger King was mostly like Western thing. Like it was like the United States, you know, the UK, stuff like that. Whereas like this is popular everywhere in the world. This is like popular in Korea and Japan and the United States and Australia and the Middle East and Africa. It's everywhere. It's like the number one show.
I have no idea how that happened, but yeah.
Like,
and that's not, I'm not putting down, I'm watching it. I'm 3 episodes into it right now. All I can say is it's excellent. It's really well done.
I haven't watched any of it yet, but the one thing I'll say that just from what I have seen of like trailers and pictures and stuff is I love shows that nail down like their own iconography.
Yes.
And this show seems to be just ripping it, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, this show does that. This show has its own iconography that's instantly recognizable. And maybe that's one of the reasons. Maybe that helps because it does have instantly recognizable iconography that translates to, you know, different cultures.
Do the PlayStation symbols throw you off?
Yeah, I definitely thought this was about winning a PlayStation 5.
You know where those symbols are actually from?
They are from, the PlayStation 1, obviously.
No, like those controller button symbols that are on the PlayStation. I didn't know this until later, but those are like like grading symbols, like in Asia.
Right, yeah.
So like an X for wrong, a circle for right. Like they use those, the triangle, all those ones.
Yeah, that's why, that's
Asia.
why in Japan, the PlayStation controllers, circle was go and X is cancel. And then when you play a PlayStation in North America, X is confirm and circle is cancel. It's like backwards. And it's been like that for Sony with the PlayStation 5. They changed it now so that it's X is confirm and circle is cancel everywhere, even in Japan now.
Yeah. So basically, if you're watching Squid Game and you're like, why are there PlayStation symbols everywhere? Know that like Squid Game and PlayStation got those from the same thing. This isn't a big reference to PlayStation. No,
it's not. And also, like, there's an X button on PlayStation. I haven't seen anybody with an X on their face.
No.
Just circle, triangle, and square.
Yeah, I saw things where it was promoting the show and it showed the 3 symbols without the X. But that's Squid Game. That's out now on Netflix, and it's, like I said, #1 in the world, like everywhere in the world. It's what takes around us. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can recommend it, even though I'm only 3 episodes in. It's excellent. It's weird. It really feels like one of those shows that only, like, us cool people should know about. Like, it should be like, yeah, have you seen that Squid Game? Like, nobody else knows about it. Go with subs. Dub sounds kind of goofy.
Yeah, a lot of times they do.
Yeah.
I remember Netflix talking about how they were going to like revolutionize dubs and stuff, and I think their dubs are almost some of the worst.
Dub doesn't sound any better than anything like I've heard before. Like I didn't watch it and go, oh man, wow, this sounds like natural.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
It always looks so off, you know. Next news story, Nintendo did their Smash Direct for their final Smash Ultimate DLC character. And it is
Sora Company Limited. Woo!
Yes, it is the company Sora.
Sakurai got his company in there.
That is the character. I actually said, like, I wish that was the character. And not Sora, because I just don't like Nomura.
Sora from Kingdom Hearts. Characters. Have you played Kingdom Hearts?
I played a tiny bit of it because I bought a copy of it for one of my nephews on PlayStation 2. And so I was playing a little bit of it with him, but that's about as much as it was. Maybe about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, like, that's barely nothing.
Like, yeah, like, I was literally
didn't even get out, like, the first, like, area that, what is it? Something town.
Yeah, I didn't get out of that area. Like, I literally was just, like, playing around, seeing how it worked, and helping my nephew play the game a little bit.
Traverse Town, I believe it's called.
That's all it was. And then, like, he said he was going to play it later. I don't know if he ever did, and that was it. I used to buy him old games and old systems and stuff. Like, you know, I'd go to, like, buy, like, used video game shops and stuff and buy them to get them onto those instead of like the new systems when they were coming out.
I mean, it's fine. I'm not, you know, like, it's fine. Kingdom Hearts has a big fan base.
I hate Nomura.
They deserve their moment.
Nomura fans have 3 characters now. They don't deserve
They have
that.
3 Nomura characters in Kingdom Hearts. And he still doesn't have the decency to
in a just world, there would be none.
He still doesn't have the decency to port his games to Switch. What an ass. What an ass.
Well, here they are because
they're not ports.
They're cloud versions that are available.
That's not a port. That's just they're pointing to a server. I mean,
literally running off. Well, they have to be a port because they're going to have to like change like button input names and things like that. So there's going to be at least a bare minimum that they have to do. Like they're not just going to be running it off of PlayStation server blades. You know,
they announced during this Kingdom Hearts. The 1.2.
So basically, they're releasing all of the Kingdom Hearts games across 3 games. So the first one is Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, or it's called 1.5 plus 2.5 Remix.
Jesus Christ.
The second one is called 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue. And that's actually, I think that's all the 3DS ones that came out.
Yeah, it's like the 3DS game and some other stuff. It's really hard to keep track of this crap.
And then the last one is Kingdom Hearts 3 plus the DLC for that.
Like Kingdom Hearts 3 I can understand as a PS4 game, but like the other games, they're PS2 games. The remasters were originally done for the PS3. Then they were ported to the PS4. there's no reason you can't get those running natively on a Switch. And it's just that I think we're in a period now where a lot of companies are going to find it easier to just set up cloud versions of games on Switch rather than spend the money actually porting the code over to Switch to have it run natively.
Yeah. Actually, I'd be really interested in how the cloud stuff on Switch is doing.
Right.
Because I haven't heard anybody talk about it beyond putting games up for it. You know, like, oh, here's another game that's got a cloud version, but like nobody mentions if the game did well at all. You know,
it must be doing something because companies,
or it's just so inexpensive to just throw it up there.
It must be because it's probably real cheap to do that.
It just takes like no effort, so they're just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
It's almost like a PR move more than an actual game release, you know.
And so it's a cheap way that they can expose themselves to a Switch audience.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, it's this weird thing, right, where the Switch is so popular, they want their games to have a presence on it, but they don't want to spend the money porting it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with cloud games because for me, I play Switch docked all the time. Like, I never undock my Switch. Like, very rarely do I ever take my Switch out. Like, less than maybe twice a year have I taken my Switch out of the dock. That's how little I undock it. And I have pretty good internet, and I'm a Stadia gamer, so I already do cloud gaming. So I have no issues with cloud gaming. But this just seems like it's almost more of a PR move than it is an actual game release. It just seems very lazy. But in addition to Sora and the Kingdom Hearts games cloud versions, they also added the final Mii costumes. And that seems a little bit lazy too, because there's only like one full costume, and that's a Doomslayer. And then Octoling, I think it's just the wig. And then Judd, it's literally a hat. It looks like they murdered Judd and turned him into a coonskin hat.
Yes, finally. Yeah. Somebody did that. No. It's fine. It's fine. Doomslayer's fun.
The question is, did they put in Doom music in with this update?
They didn't say anything about Doom music. I don't recall them saying anything about Doom music.
They played some in the trailer, so that would be the best thing to come from this. Get some Doomy gent up in here.
But I'm disappointed because the beginning of the trailer looked like Mario was going to link the fire. I was expecting like he was going to light a bonfire. It's like, oh, no, just Sora out of nowhere. It's fine.
I'm over Smash.
Okay. Well,
let's move on to the next.
Move on. Yeah, I think that's a good place to end that.
Capcom's future is PC. So this is a quote from Haruhiro Sugimoto, Capcom's COO, Chief Operating Officer. He said, "We will expand our business for dedicated game consoles, which has been the mainstream up to now, but PC will be the mainstream in the future." He said, "We have recently stated that we will make the PC our main platform." And he says that they're going to do that within 2 years.
And you know what? Good for Capcom. Definitely, PC is a legitimate platform. It's nice to see companies like Capcom focus more on that platform. Even Sony has gotten into putting games up on there. I don't see why not. I don't see anything bad about it.
We'll have to see what ends up becoming of Capcom.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Our next segment is On Tap.
What we've been watching. What we've been playing. What's on tap?
On Tap is where we talk about things that we've been playing or watching. And this is a separate segment from Full Spoilers. This is usually kind of one-sided. One of us is watching or playing something, and we try to avoid spoilers as much as possible. So we're going to kick this On Tap off with the Idaten Deities Know Only piece.
Okay, I know nothing about this, so
this is an anime series. It's on Crunchyroll. I was like going through my regular anime series, which I usually don't mention here because it's just a bunch of isekai stuff that most people don't care about. And I just like, because it's like comfort food for me. But I finished some of the episodes I had, and I wanted to watch some more anime. And I had some stuff. I had a pretty big queue of old stuff that I'd either stopped watching a while ago, or like, you know, that I still plan to watch eventually, or like other shows that were new that I hadn't watched. And so I said, I'm going to check out this Idaten Deities anime. And it's fucking nuts. It is a crazy series. It goes to some very dark places, but it doesn't look like a dark series. Like, it looks very cartoony, but then like it goes into like just really disturbing territory. let me try to explain a little bit of the story. So there's like these demon beast things that were roaming around. Basically, they were going to destroy all of the world's resources and kill everything. And then these deities rose to like, basically they're like combat deities, and they came and they pushed them all away. They killed all the demons or got rid of them all. And then all of them like sealed themselves away with the demons in this like rock, except for one of the deities. And she just kind of sat there, and then as other deities popped up, because other deities kind of come into existence basically when humans are like desperate, when they're like in a desperate situation, like a deity is basically born. And so these other deities had been born, and the one that had been left behind was like training them. And then there's like some plot with like demons coming back, and they're now like, instead of being these kind of like mindless giant beasts, they've like kind of inhabited like human bodies, and they're kind of like doing it like in a more intelligent way. And you kind of start getting this like chess game between this one deity that's kind of like, he's kind of weaker, but he's smart, and then like some of the smarter demons, but it just goes into some weird directions. That's kind of the best way I can put it. It just, some of the stuff in there is pretty dark and pretty like kind of surprising. But that's that. Next up, we have a game that you've been playing, Will, Castlevania Circle of the Moon. This is one of the games on the recent Castlevania Advance Collection.
Yeah, so I bought the Advance Collection when that came out. I think I mentioned that last week. And recently I beat Circle of the Moon. I haven't played that game in years, since I first had GBA. And it's okay. It's fine. It wasn't as good as I remembered it being. And the main reason for that is game is hard. It's old school hard. Like, it's not like Symphony of the Night or an Igavania where like those games are much easier. This game will whoop your butt. And there's a lot of points where I just felt like the difficulty felt cheap, or like it felt hateful. And I was just like, damn, this is a hateful game.
I only played the beginning, and I can say that there's parts that are just like annoying. Like there's like these giant snake things on the ceiling that drop snakes down, and the only way you can really attack them early on is using like the spin whip move, where you have to hold the whip button down.
Yes.
And so to clear through this thing, you have to hit this thing on the ceiling like 3 times and kill all the snakes that spewed by spinning. It just takes time, like in a really annoying way. And it's like, I just want to progress through this hallway, but I can't get through here without taking a bunch of damage unless I take my time to carefully kill all of them.
Right. And that's pretty much like the majority of the game. It's like there's long hallways full of enemies over and over again like that. So you can't just rush through. You've got to take your time and beat the enemies if you want to get through the hallways. Another really annoying thing in Circle of the Moon is in every Castlevania game, up to this point, beating a boss will drop an orb that will refill your health. In Symphony of the Night, actually, beating a boss drops a health max up, which refills your health and increases it. In Circle of the Moon, beating an enemy drops nothing. Whatever, like, damage you have left after you beat the boss, you have to hoof it to a save point and pray you get there without getting killed, especially if you beat the boss and you're like at critical damage. And people say, well, why not pop a health item? Well, because that's another thing about this game. Enemies rarely drop health items like potions, and like potions, they don't heal like a lot of damage. Potions are the most common, regular potions, and they don't heal a lot of damage. It's insane. I think like I ended my run with like 8 potions or something, which is crazy considering like it should be way more than that, but they're not common drops for some reason.
Yeah, it's seeming really annoying to me. I'm not a big fan of like traditional Castlevania. I'm more of a fan of like the Metroidvania Castlevanias. And this one, like I'm like, oh, I'll play these. These are all, except for, Dracula X, these are all supposed to be like Metroidvanias,
And Circle of the Moon is a Metroidvania. It has
kind of.
It has all the exploration. It has the, it has the exploration, the big castle. It has the, gain new skills to progress. You can't progress or explore all the castle without all the skills. But the moment gameplay feels like a classic Castlevania game more than it does a Metroidvania.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm thinking this just might not be for me. I might end up having to move on to. What's the next one? Harmony of Dissonance?
Yeah, Harmony of Dissonance, which I'm playing through now. And so far I'm enjoying more, mostly because it feels more like a Metroidvania and it feels like a lot more fair in its gameplay. It's a lot less frustrating. I will tell you that.
Yeah, I haven't played Harmony of Dissonance. I have played Aria of Sorrow, and that's a great game. It seems like the ones that I'd like more would be the DS ones.
Probably.
As well as the later Castlevania games. But yeah, I guess that's it for Castlevania Circle of the Moon. Next up, I've been watching Y the Last Man on FX on Hulu. Y the Last Man is this property that it's one of those ones that was considered an impossible property, along with Foundation, which just got an adaptation, Game of Thrones, which was adapted. There's these series of books and comic books and things that were considered to be unadaptable. A lot of them have been adapted now, but it's arguable how well. So Y the Last Man was one of those. They tried to adapt it a whole bunch of times and just kind of ended up, not getting it through. And this current adaptation was kind of a bit of a rocky road. There were, I think, a few different times in which the showrunner left and they got on a new showrunner and started redeveloping it. It took a while for this to come about. If you don't know anything about Y the Last Man, the best way to say it is basically a global pandemic hits. Familiar territory now for everybody in the world. But a global pandemic hits. It targets the Y chromosome in people and animals. And so basically everything with the Y chromosome dies, except one guy and one monkey. That the guy happens to have a pet monkey. He's like a escape artist, the guy. And so he has this pet monkey, and the two of them are the only existences that, at least so far that I've seen, with a Y chromosome. So one of the things they did a little bit differently, apparently, between the comic book and the show for this adaptation is that, there are other men, but there's trans men, so, but it's that kind of creates interesting possibilities where the main character can kind of maybe pass himself off as being a trans man to avoid scrutiny, where they just think
geez, that sounds dicey as hell. Having the main character pretend to be trans that sounds very problematic.
He usually just goes around with a gas mask on and doesn't do it.
Yeah.
But there have been a few moments where another trans man or a trans man has walked up to him and said oh, you don't have to hide it here. We don't have any T, meaning testosterone, but you don't have to hide your face here or something. And he'll take his mask off and you can tell he's scared. So it's not done in a weird political way. It's literally done in a realistic way in which there are moments in which he has to have passed himself off as trans, because if he doesn't, he'll basically be killed by somebody that's what, you're a man. And then what's interesting about the whole concept of this show and the graphic novel that it's based on is that if something big like that happened, where basically all men died and then one man is still alive, and you're what the fuck? What's that mean? You're going to end up with these very disparate factions. You're going to have people that are it's a man, we must all breed with him immediately so we can have more children and perpetuate the species. There are going to be people that would practically see him as a deity because he's a man and he's the last surviving one. There are going to be people that fucking want him dead because they're men were a disease on our planet and now they're all gone and this guy's still here, so he should go. There's a group within this in the series already that they have a trans man in this group that gets kind of involved in this group or gets somehow mixed in with this group, not by his choice. And you can already see that it's dicey for him. Just being a trans man, even not being biologically born a man, he feels very uncomfortable and he's on very dangerous ground. Some of them clearly want to kill him.
Right.
And so there's so it plays into the kind of ideas of the way there'd be different factions. To make it even worse, the one surviving man with the Y chromosome here is the son of the president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when conspiracy theories start coming into play.
Right.
So and they it hasn't even really come up where that's been identified yet, but it's come up as a source of anxiety for the characters, where they're okay, we have to hide his identity because if they know that your son is the only one to survive, everything's going to collapse because people are going to riot. They're going to freak out if they find out that oh, so the last living man is your son. What does that mean? And all sorts of conspiracy theories are going to derive from that. So the series is it's a lot of just different mashing anxieties, basically. So it can be hard to watch sometimes because we're in a global pandemic. We're in a moment of cultural revolution with a lot of things, with trans rights and all the Black Lives Matter stuff that was going on. And we're in a time in which we have these insane conspiracy theories floating all over the place, like in our real reality.
Right, yeah.
And so this kind of reflects a lot of that. And, you know, this show went into production before the pandemic hit, but it almost seems like it's in response to everything that's been going on, not just the pandemic, but everything else that's been going on in the last couple of years, because it just kind of like perfectly fits into what's going on there. So basically what I'll say is it's a really good show. It's worth a watch. But if you have a lot of anxiety about what's going on right now and you just don't want to deal with that in your fiction, it might be worth skipping. So that's Why the Last Man. We're going to move on to On the Horizon. On the Horizon is our segment where we talk about stuff that's coming up in the next couple of weeks, just to quickly preview it. We got one here that's like a carryover from last week that I'm bringing on here just because it's a big one. And that's our first one here. Metroid Dread comes out on Friday, October 8th. By the time this podcast is out, it's probably already out.
Dread it. Run from it. Samus arrives inevitably.
Yep. Friday, October 8th on Nintendo Switch. I already got my copy preloaded on my system waiting.
Nice.
Waiting for that little date unlock.
I got shipping confirmation today, so it's coming.
Okay, cool. Are you going to get it day one?
Yeah, it's coming Friday. It said.
Cool.
Lord, it's coming.
Also on Friday, October 8th, No Time to Die comes out in theaters. That's the new James Bond movie. There's a lot of hype about this one. I don't think I've seen this much hype for a James Bond movie in a while.
It's Daniel Craig's last movie as Bond, and so
yeah, that's a huge part of the hype for it. Yeah, but there's also, I think,
he's been Bond since like 2006.
It's what's her name? Something Waller-Bridge, or what's her name? I can't remember.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
And then, you know, Rami Malek as well.
Yeah, Rami Malek. Don't know who that is. That's some unknown. Don't think I've watched anything with him in it. Certainly never seen anything called Mr. Robot.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
It's not like he played Freddie Mercury or anything.
Yeah, right.
But that's Friday, October 8th as well. Then on Tuesday, October 12th on Netflix, Bright Samurai Soul comes out. This is like an anime prequel series. Prequel sounds a little weird because this takes place like hundreds of years, I think, before the movie took place. But do you remember the movie Bright on Netflix?
No, I didn't watch that.
David Ayer directed it. It came out like just after Suicide Squad, I think. So it was
no, I didn't watch this.
It's kind of like a modern fantasy kind of thing with like elves but this is an anime kind of spin-off kind of prequel thing, takes place like 200 years before, and it has a pretty cool looking art style. So that's coming out Tuesday, October 12th. Also on Tuesday, October 12th, something I think you're looking forward to, Chucky, the series comes to, and it's going to be on both SyFy and USA, which is
nice. That's kind of neat.
Yeah. I've seen that with a few things, not much, but yeah.
The trailers look good. It's a continuation of the classic series, so it has nothing to do with recent reboot.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, yeah, definitely.
Original people involved too, so.
Yeah, the original creators involved. Yeah, he brought back all the actors from the series of the past. So, should be fun times.
Yeah. Then on Wednesday, October 13th on the CW, DC's Legends of Tomorrow return. Are you up to date on Legends of Tomorrow?
No, I haven't watched that in a long while, but
that was the last Arrowverse thing I was watching.
It's still the best of the Arrowverse shows.
Yeah. As
far as I'm concerned.
That was the last Arrowverse thing I watched, and I think I missed the last season.
I gotta catch up. It's a fun show, but I haven't been watching anything Arrowverse or CW in a while.
Yeah. And then on Friday, October 15th, Day of the Dead comes to SyFy. So just like Chucky is getting its own series, now they're making a TV series adaptation of George Romero's Day of the Dead.
Okay, interesting. I hadn't heard of that one. I like Day of the Dead. I don't know how that's a series. A lot of the appeal of Day of the Dead was like its setting and like its meta commentary on consumerism.
Yeah. Oh, you're thinking Dawn of the Dead, I think.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking of Dawn. Never mind.
Yeah. Day of the Dead is the other one.
Day of the Dead's the one where they're underground with like the military officers.
Yeah. So this is a TV series adaptation of Day of the Dead. So I don't know how that's going to turn out, but it's a big deal. And that's going to be on SyFy. So you're going to have this week Chucky and Day of the Dead.
You know, it's spooky season, so that's to be expected.
Spooktacular.
Yeah, spooktacular.
Also on Friday, October 15th, in theaters and on the Peacock app with a simultaneous release is Halloween Kills.
I'm going to be watching this. I really loved the Halloween reboot like a couple years back.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like they really nailed it.
And this is a direct continuation.
Yeah. So obviously I'm going to see this.
Yeah. Are you going to watch it on Peacock or in theaters?
It's going to be Peacock. You know it's going to be on Peacock. Come on.
So you're going to subscribe to Peacock for like a month or something? Or
yeah, it's like what, $5?
It's $5 for the ad tier. If you want it ad free, it's more.
Oh.
But you could probably just sign up for a free trial.
That's true.
While you're at it, check out there's some good stuff on Peacock.
Is there?
Check out AP Bio.
Oh, that's right. Yes, AP Bio. Okay.
That one's good. We Are Lady Parts is good. That's kind of weird. Girls 5 Eva. It looks like it's going to be something that you wouldn't like, but it's a Tina Fey thing. So it's like if you like Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and 30 Rock and stuff, you'll like Girls 5 Eva.
Right. Yeah, Tina Fey's good. I like her stuff.
Yeah. So that one's actually pretty good. So yeah, check that out. And then lastly, also on Friday, October 15th, I Know What You Did Last Summer comes to Amazon Prime.
I watched trailers that look completely idiotic. I mean, the movie isn't like the world's greatest thing ever. Like the first one is like
enough, the movie and this are both based off of a book. So this is not based off of the movie. This is
I heard this is closer to the
book.
book. The movie was like, they took the book and they basically like turned it into a slasher because that was what was popular at the time because of Scream. And the book itself isn't really like a slasher, but like, I don't know, the trailer looked terrible. So I've never read the book either, so I don't really care.
But that's it. That's what's coming up on the horizon. So our next segment is full spoilers. Full spoilers is, of course, where we go over our main catalog shows in full spoilers. This week discussing What We Do in the Shadows and the season 1 finale of Marvel's What If.
Yeah.
Let's kick things off with What We Do in the Shadows, season 3, episode 6, The Escape. What do you think?
I loved it. I thought it was probably the best episode of the season since Cloak and Duplication.
I think I kind of agree with you, but at the same time, there are parts about this episode that I absolutely hated. I thought the gargoyle scene was just really, it just didn't look good. Like the animation didn't look good. Didn't look good.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on the gargoyle scene. It wasn't my favorite scene of the episode either.
Yeah.
They could easily cut it. It would have been fine.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like moments in this, and this is something that's just been going through the whole season, which is why I can't argue that it might be the best episode of the season, because this has been a problem through this whole season. There's a lot of parts where just characters have been doing things this whole season that feel like out of character for them. Like, and it just makes it feel like I'm almost like I'm watching like fan fiction instead of like the actual show. And that's something I've been having an issue with this whole season. It's one of those things where it's like, it's still funny enough and I still love the characters enough that I'm still watching and enjoying it. But at the same time, it's like, like you can really, like, I was wondering before the season started, I'm like, is this going to feel off because, you know, it's not the same showrunner anymore?
So examples. So examples of what you're talking about here. What's off?
In general, I think, like, for example,
the weirdest
Colin Robinson is very out of character for me this season.
Yeah, it seems that way. Like, the weirdest thing, like, this episode, one thing that does jump out at me, this episode was there's a point where Guillermo, like, he starts taking charge. You know, he slaps Nandor. He's like, wake up, you know, and he tells Laszlo to, like, get new shoes and stuff, and Laszlo's just like, fuck you. And then he tells Colin Robinson, you know, to get him a glass of water, no ice. And Colin Robinson just replies with, you know, he just says, like, something to the effect of, I wouldn't even know where to get that. And I'm just like, what? Like, it wasn't like he wasn't saying that as a joke to me. He looked genuinely confused. And I'm just like, Colin Robinson doesn't know about water?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, it's supposed to be a joke, but it also doesn't really make sense considering like he could draw knowledge on the most mundane stuff, but he doesn't know what water is, like, or where to get it.
It's also like the characters this season, and that's like that's like the opposite of the example I'm going to say, but like the characters in this season, like a lot of them are like, before they seemed just completely like clueless. They're so separated from reality, from the real world, that like they just are like out, and
but Colin Robinson lives in the real world.
Like
he has like office jobs and stuff, right?
I was just gonna say, for like all the characters, it almost feels more like they're putting on an act of being like out of it this season, whereas they just were before. Like, because like when push comes to shove this season, unlike the past seasons, like they kind of like adapt and go like, oh yeah, okay, we'll give power to Guillermo or something. Whereas I don't think they would have done that before. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't fit.
I don't know. I mean, that's an evolution of the characters. Like, it's just like the characters evolving, which is fine.
I don't think, but it doesn't feel like an evolution to me. It feels like a shift. It feels like they just changed the way they wrote.
I don't know. It feels more like an evolution. It doesn't feel like the example you gave. It doesn't feel like that's part of a shift, to me at least.
It does to me. Like, definitely does to me. And, perfect examples would be like, in this episode, like Laszlo's response when Guillermo was like, well, I guess I'll just take off or something, just seemed very un-Laszlo-like to me. I don't know. A lot of it just seems so off to me. Like, it feels like you can really see the absence of the original showrunner.
Right. Let's talk more about the actual episode itself.
Okay.
So overall, what are your thoughts?
When you get past the things I was complaining about, which there are instances of in this episode. Let's get past the
things.
I know, I'm just saying. I liked the storyline with the Sire and the Baron.
Yes,
I think the Baron felt exactly like he did in his first appearance, in a way that like the other characters haven't been feeling right for me.
Right.
The Baron just being like just a torso, and then like seemingly having no problem with it, and just being kind of like happy-go-lucky about it, just seems a lot like what I remember the Baron.
I love the fact like they had him like in a fucking like remote controlled car.
He's like, I'm controlling it with my mind, and then you see Nadja with a remote control.
Not Nadja, it was
it was the guide.
The guide, yeah, it was the guide holding the remote.
Yeah.
I love that. The way they brought the Baron back was so great too, because like basically like Nandor was going around saying, since the Sire is like supposed to be like the father of all vampires, he was going to say, if the Sire dies, like all vampires die, because if the person who turns you dies, then you die. And Laszlo is like, that's shit. Like, what are you talking about? That's so stupid. And he and Nadja just go into conversation because he's like, because, that's shit, because the Baron's dead. And the Baron turned Nadja, and Nadja turned me, so we'd be dead. And then, like, that gets Laszlo like, oh shit, and it gets him to, like, run out into the yard and dig the Baron up just to make sure he's actually dead.
I like the fact that they don't know where they buried him, so they're just digging at random places, or having Guillermo dig at random places. And then at a certain point, they just call out to him, and they get a response.
And they get a response, yeah.
They're just like, Baron, and you just hear, yes.
I love how the Baron has been subsisting off, like, the blood of, like, the victims that they killed and just buried in the yard.
Into the soil,
Yeah, just leaking into the soil.
That was funny. And just that he's just a torso through this whole episode.
Yeah, he's just a torso through this whole episode. The Baron is fantastic. I was so happy that they brought him back.
Doug Jones was fantastic in that role.
I loved, like, the reveal of the Sire. The Sire looked exactly the way he should look. Probably wasn't the best effects, but it was like, the Sire looked appropriately, like, monstrous, like with big bat wings and stuff, like you would imagine, like an ancient vampire who's lived so long would probably like evolve to look like,
On IMDb, there's both his voice listed, but also another actor listed as well. So I guess there is somebody in prosthetics. And
it must be somebody in like a suit or something. Yeah.
Playing that part, because it's not CG.
No, it's definitely not CG.
So it can't be like.
It was definitely practical.
Yeah, but it's basically this like hunched over. Ironically, considering there's gargoyles in this episode, gargoyle-like vampire.
It has big bat wings, skeletal looking face.
I love the end of the episode. the way they were able to resolve it, because they're like, they wanted to,
because he didn't want to
back into,
they wanted to lure the sire back into captivity, but the sire didn't want to be locked in a room for like, and you can understand that.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
and the solution was they just put them in like a house in the countryside.
Yes.
With the hellhound. It's just like a golden retriever.
Fire. It turned out to be actual hellhound because like he breathed fire as squirrel. Like that was awesome. Yeah. Like it wasn't like last year you thought, oh, the joke was it's a golden retriever and they're just all scared of it for whatever reason.
I just love them like gleefully luring in.
I love what he said because the way he introduced it, because he's like, oh, and they have this great new delivery service called Airbnb.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're just using Airbnb, and like the way they're so gleeful, like the Baron like wearing like some weird coat, like still looking completely inhuman, opening the door, and then he's all like kind of
hiding behind the door.
Yeah, like rubbing his hands together all gleefully.
Yeah, all gleefully. That was fantastic.
To me,
I love
like,
that
those
ending.
Characters felt more like What We Do in the Shadows than the main cast.
Than the main cast. I don't know. I liked Laszlo, like, stupidly, like, swallowing a freaking flute or something, and, like, from then on, like,
harmonica.
Harmonica. Like, and from every, like, point on, like, every time he said something, it would, like, come up with, like, the honks and stuff.
Yeah, not just like, you did not swallow a harmonica. He's like, I did. And he just hear,
yeah. I love the whole thing with Nandor, this episode. It was so great because one of the best things in this episode was the fact that Naja actually like gaslights Nandor into thinking like the sire like escaping is all his fault.
Yeah.
Because she gaslights him into thinking that he didn't feed the sire when he was supposed to.
And he's just breaking down into tears.
And yeah, he's just like having like a nervous breakdown. He holds like a vampire press conference and basically freaks out the whole day because he's saying like, we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. Like Nandor was fantastic this episode with like how much of a mess he is. Oh, and one of the best parts too is like at the end there, when like it looks like Naja is going to have like a moment of conscience and she's gonna actually confess to Nandor. She's like, Nandor, I have something to tell you. He's like, what? She's like, that helmet's stupid. That's not gonna protect you.
Yeah, I like the part where Nandor almost blew Guillermo's cover with the Baron.
Yeah,
he's actually a very capable vampire killer, and then the Baron's kind of like pshawing it, and he's like, he managed to kill you, and he's like, what was that? And he's like, Jean. He managed to kill you, Jean.
You, Jean. Yeah,
he's a very formidable vampire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, like it feels, I like the character so much. In particular, I love Nandor because he's just so adorable.
Yeah, Nandor's been great this season, I think.
Yeah, he's just so adorable. He's such like a little puppy dog, but he's like, a vampire.
Yeah, he's a big vampire, yeah.
But he's so like such a fragile little puppy dog that like,
yes, he is.
You enjoy watching him for that. And then Laszlo, of course, is great. I think they're kind of underutilizing the two Najas, the doll and the other.
Yes, they definitely are. Yeah. I love how Naja is the most ambitious and like cutthroat of the group.
Yeah.
But she'll do anything for Laszlo. Like, that's her weakness.
Yeah. I don't necessarily like Guillermo being as assertive as he is this season. No. It's just not as entertaining. And
right.
Colin Robinson, like I said, just feels really
Colin Robinson is off. I don't know what's going on with him this season.
Yeah, I just don't think they know how to write for him. Like, the current writers don't know how to write for him.
That's what I think, yeah.
So that's unfortunate. Hopefully it continues to improve as it goes on. It's still funny. It's kind of like I compared it before to, and I'll still say it. It's kind of like Supernatural. We got the first 5 seasons. That was the main story. Everything else was like, just a big epilogue.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of how I'm trying to look at What We Do in the Shadows now. Is I'm trying to look at it as like the first 2 seasons for the show, and the rest is just like kind of fun little bits with the characters.
Right.
Because like the main stuff is just, a lot of the stuff's just not working for me.
Not working this season for you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the characters just feel off, like, to me, so it's still fun to watch though. It's still, the characters are still enjoyable to be around. So that's how I'm going to try to continue watching it with that kind of mindset. That's it for What We Do in the Shadows. Let's move on to our final show for the evening. And that is What If Season 1, Episode 9, the Season 1 finale. What if the Watcher broke his oath?
Yes.
This is a continuation to an episode that you really liked last week. I had a few more issues with, but I still did like it. Okay. What did you think about the conclusion?
I thought it was all right. It wasn't anything like super special. It was pretty boilerplate, right? Heroes get together. Heroes fight the big threat. They beat the big threat.
Some cool action scenes.
There's some cool action scenes. There's some nice moments. it really felt lacking. Again, like there's no twist to it. I want more character moments. There are hardly any character moments in this.
Oh yeah, this is just
they're trying to move things. Yeah, they're trying to.
There were a
move
few
things
character
on.
moments with Captain Carter, like nothing with Gamora, who we haven't
nothing
seen at all in What If.
Yeah, her first appearance in What If, we get like virtually nothing with her. We get very little with Killmonger and Star-Lord T'Challa, which, I would love to see them interact more.
Thor does a few stupid things, but does
they have Thor being like an idiot. I hated that. I really wish they kind of like, I don't know, they didn't have to lean into the idea that Thor's like a giant idiot so much. Like, Doctor Strange was interesting. I don't know. I feel like maybe if it was a longer narrative and they had like more time to like really do character beats and stuff, it could have been better.
Yeah.
That was my big disappointment. They put all
the
these
one thing
characters together and you barely get anything from that.
I think the one thing I kind of thought was interesting, like I said, was like Arnim Zola kind of ending up being like their hope or like their plan,
Yeah. Arnim Zola basically being like the savior.
It makes sense because you'd think like, oh, but he's horrible and everything. But then you think like, but the world's already like destroyed. So like, it's not like he was just being evil for the intent of being evil. He had like an agenda and that's gone. In the state of the world, his agenda is gone. So
I love that.
He'd have a reason to fight,
I love how they gave all these universes like pretty much happy endings. Like they removed Killmonger from his universe. So like that problem for them is solved, right? Like the universe where Hank Pym killed the Avengers, they brought Black Widow from the Ultron universe, brought her to that universe and let her stay there. So like Nick Fury has like a new Black Widow now.
That was for that universe?
Yeah, that was that universe.
I knew it was a different universe, but I couldn't tell it was the one from the episode 3.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Because
I was going to say, I'm like, that's
because it was Nick Fury. Because it was Nick Fury, Captain America, and Captain Marvel fighting Loki.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense.
And then Loki said, so they told me you were dead. And then like Black Widow said something or whatever. Because like Black Widow was like, she had that whole scene with the Watcher where she's like, you don't care about us. You're going to just leave me on this earth. My earth, everybody's dead. There's nothing here.
Yeah, she's like, I'm not walking through the door. And he's like, well, the door is kind of just a metaphor.
yeah, exactly. And so the Watcher says he does care. And then like, that's where he puts her. He doesn't make her stay in her universe with nothing in it.
Yeah. He makes Doctor Strange stay in his universe.
Yeah, he does too.
He gets 2 new guests, basically 2 people in a snow globe that he gets to watch for all eternity.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to have a joyous life. I don't like how Killmonger was just able to use the stones, like, with no consequences.
Yeah.
I think they've done it quite a few times. And I mentioned in the last episode with, like, Thanos, the way he was just killed instantly and stuff. They've defanged a lot of like the big moments from the MCU in this,
yes, they did.
Which is kind of frustrating because they were sort of like big moments and they just kind of turned them into nothing. And so that's a little frustrating for that.
Also, Gamora is actually from an episode that was planned to be this season, but that they had to cut due to COVID. But that episode will be in season 2, so that's going to be a little weird.
Just a little weird.
Yeah. So all the stuff that like you saw at the beginning with Gamora and Tony Stark was connected to an actual episode that they didn't have ready in time to include in the season.
It's interesting that they even were able to include zombies by just opening up a portal and dropping
the
zombies.
I loved that part when Doctor Strange opened the portal and dropped the zombies on them on Ultron.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Finally put some use to that episode.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
It was kind of dumb, though, that they set up the whole thing where he's all, but the zombies aren't why I opened up the portal or something,
Yeah, and it was like a
zombie
Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, but then they kind of just like ended that like almost immediately after that reveal, which was kind of unfortunate.
Again, like I think that's my biggest problem is it was 30 minutes, and so like it felt rushed.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It was a mixed bag episode. There was some good stuff worth watching and stuff.
Definitely.
It wasn't as bad as Zombies.
No. This is hardly like the worst. It's a good episode. It's just a lot of things felt rushed.
It's no Doctor Strange episode.
They're still struggling to tailor things to a 30-minute runtime.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, it was fine. It was all right.
It's about what I expected, actually.
Yeah.
But that's it for What If the Watcher Broke His Oath, the season finale. Next week, we are not going to be doing What If because that was the season finale. So instead, we will be doing What We Do in the Shadows, season 3, episode 7, and maybe a certain movie that just hit Disney Plus.
Perhaps.
Perhaps. We'll cover that as well next week. So thank you everybody for listening. You can follow me on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. Send us feedback through either our Twitter handles or on our YouTube page or on our main site. Anything, anywhere you can leave a comment, do so. We would enjoy the opportunity to read those, good, bad, or indifferent. But until next week, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Little Screen. Visit our website at thetittlescreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.